Welcome to the Wednesday, April 23rd Island Lake Board hearing of assessment. I'll call the meeting to order and we'll do a pledge of allegiance. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, welcome everyone on this beautiful April morning in Michigan. I know there's millions of people tuning in to our meeting today to anxiously find out our next move. We open up to public comment. We have a microphone on my right, your left. If you'd like to come on and make any comment regarding the lake boards, now is your time. If not, we'll close the public comment and move on to item number 3, consider appointment of lake board chairperson. Martin, you want to take over here?
Typically the township's supervisor has acted as the lake board chairperson, and to make that official, I move to appoint Mike McCready as the Island Lake board chair.
Second.
Second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, it passes. Thank you.
You want to do me?
Okay. Pardon me? Yes. Now we want to consider appointment of lake board treasurer secretary. I'd like to nominate our clerk, Martin Brook.
I accept.
All in favor, support?
Second.
Support. Second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. Sure, you're super swell. Item number 5, approve the business meeting minutes of April 10th, 2024. Any questions on that? If not, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Second. Support?
Support.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
It passes. Item number 6, review the 2024 lake maintenance agreement. Anybody want,
Lake
Martin, you want to cover that?
maintenance,
Or
Tom will.
Tom,
Lake Pro
second.
or Oakland Harvesters? Somebody want to tie?
Yeah.
Would you like to go
Lake Pro.
first?
I'm Michael Smith from Lake Pro, now Tigris. We manage the lake there on Island Lake. And for 2024, we'll start by talking about what was going on at the beginning of the year. It's a typical, like during the springtime, you have the water turnover from changes in temperatures and densities. So typically what happens at Island Lake year to year, and this goes back quite a bit, but they have a spring algal bloom. Typically a planktonic species, so through the water column, so you don't get mats like a filamentous algae. But towards, throughout the latter of the year, getting into May and June, it dissipates as the macrophytes or the pond weeds grow, drawing most of the nutrients out of the water column, not allowing that algae to proliferate. And then you have clear waters typically, and a reduction of nutrients because they're bound up within those plants. But we did not see that last year. We saw a prolonged of this algal bloom throughout the year, and during one of the visits in, I believe it was May, I was out there and I talked to Ned on his dock, and we took a sample back to Lake Pro to inspect it under microscope, and I didn't see anything alarming under there. So I discussed this with Ned, and we thought it was a resuspension of sediment material that maintained turbidity within the lake. And so he asked if we could send it out to, an independent lab, have them look at it. So we sent it to Greenwater Laboratories, a new sample, which they're, some of the best phycologists in the world. They study algae. So we got a report back from them, and the predominant species within the water column, out of about 70,000 cells per milliliter, about 60 so were cyanobacteria species. And the predominant species was Phanerozomenon, Planktothrix, and Limnothrix. So this is what we saw throughout basically the whole year, and from then, we're trying to figure out what to do for that, and figuring out why it's still growing. And we've known Island Lake even go back to 2011 with the progressive AE report. We typically see higher nutrient values of phosphorus, but even this year what we recorded was similar to previous years. But what we think what's going on is essentially, every year you get more and more growth of Eurasian water milfoil, and this plant really harms the biodiversity because it's an allelopathic plant, which means that it takes over, native species, doesn't allow them to grow, suppresses their growth hormonally, and the reach of their roots is so extensive, it crowds native plant species out, and it disrupts bottom sediments too, increasing sediment release and nutrients. So that's where our heads are at right now, thinking of why this occurred longer than it typically does, because like I was saying earlier, typically dissipates throughout the year, like in May. Then typically we have clear waters for the rest of the year. And we did not see that last year. And then, of course, too, it could be based on, climate conditions, change in temperature, things like that. But, I mean, we really didn't see anything major with our temperature reading changes. So we're, trying to put our heads together. We got that running theory right now, but we're still taking a deep look into it and probably going to lean on some outside laboratories, get some more extensive testing done to figure that out. And we did have I believe it was January, end of January, we did have the muck tested for phosphorus, fractionation test, which breaks down what types of phosphorus were in there, and the most available forms were forms that could be released for plant and algae use. So, I mean, we weren't surprised by that, like we've talked, Ned, we weren't surprised to find that, but we have empirical evidence to show that now, and going forward, we're going to be looking at ways like to take away those nutrients, whether it be nutrient binding or something like that. And I gave Ned a proposal just to put an option out there to think about going forward and start that discussion. And so that's where we're at right now.
Can I jump in?
Yes,
and
sir,
speak?
please.
Okay, so I'm going to start with a caveat, is that I am not a biologist or a limnologist. I don't have a background, but I've been very involved in this for a number of years, so I do have opinions on it.
Yep.
So indeed, in 2011, we did a whole lake treatment to kill the milfoil, which caused a bad algae bloom. And we have had persistent early season algae since then. But as Mike did say, it does tend to clear in May and June. It did not clear at the end of May and June this last year. And I asked, what's going on? Is this algae or is it not algae? And Mike, as he mentioned, did do a sample. What he failed to mention was that he said it was sediment, not algae, and that we went ahead with a contact herbicide treatment which killed the milfoil and created a lot of nutrients for the algae to continue to bloom. So we did the exact wrong thing at the wrong time, which probably contributed to the rest of the season's problem of continued algae. The question is this a unique one-time situation, or is this something that we're going to have to deal with persistently? We don't actually know. We're going to try a different approach this year, certainly, and I expect that Ty will be talking about that, the person who does the harvesting. We're going to let the macrophytes, the large plants, grow a little bit longer and hope to see it clear the water before we do any, even considering harvesting or any type of a contact herbicide. So we're going to have a different approach this year. We did get the proposal about phosphorus from Lake Pro. It was $250,000 to treat the lake. It was an impractical amount of money. So, that doesn't seem like a great approach. I also want to point out that we're actually not on a trend up right now for our phosphorus in the water. If you go back to 2018, it was 106, 2019, 100, and we are within the target range right now to 96. So target is between 0 and 100, admittedly on the high end, but it does not seem to scream that we have a huge phosphorus load that we're dealing with, that we would need to take a $250,000 approach to try and resolve at this moment. So I think that this next season is going to be kind of a wait and see. Hopefully it's not going to be the same recurrence of continued algae. I don't know if you want to that was just my take on the whole situation, if you'd like to.
No, there's definitely truth to that. But like I was saying, it's just a proposal to put that out there, and that's the unfortunate thing when it comes to phosphorus binding technology. Even going with one of the oldest to date, aluminum sulfate. That's one of the oldest patented technologies that's been out. But all of these are very expensive. As you see, even looking at Use G, which that's used a lot out like in California, Washington, for water reservoirs that people drink out of. I mean, these have to be funded by, state municipalities, things like that, because they're, $1 million jobs. So that's the unfortunate thing when it comes to that approach, because they are very expensive, and that's why we were looking at Natural Lake, because of the Metafloc cost is compared just to Use G is cheaper, but the project is expensive for sure.
Seems like a great product, but yeah.
Right. And that's why I try to break it down too. I gave Ned, as many options as I could, whether it be just water quality dosing or breaking it up, through like a 4-year program. But even then, the price is still cheap, because I think the 4-year program was $71,500 for 4 years.
$278,000 total, yes.
Right.
Any other questions?
Yeah, if you have a question, you're welcome to come up to the microphone and just introduce yourself and your address, and
Should I stand up here?
yeah,
Yeah,
if you
sure.
would, please.
I'm Sonia Fernando. I just want to know where the phosphate came from that's in the lake. I know it's for growth of plants, so obviously the milfoil has the phosphates to grow that it needs to grow. So how do you bind the phosphate so that so it's not in the lake?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So going to the first one, typically that's just the natural aging of the lake, because if you look at a lake and its morphology, it's essentially a pit, and when you have an empty natural pit, it wants to be filled in. So, year after year, you have plants grow and fall, and that's where you get that biomass building up. And then, of course, you have external factors too, which, we looked at Island Lake, the watershed ratio compared to the lake size. It doesn't seem to be external factors are contributing that much, but they do to a certain extent. So, you extrapolate that to say, it's a glacial lake, so, a few hundred years, that can add into, a lot of nutrients into that lake. Plus, the development of inlets, which, even at high flow events, they haven't been too erratic with bringing in excess water or runoff. So, but like I said, again, extrapolate that over, however long they've been in place, plus with how old the lake is too. That's where you get these nutrients. And with nutrient binders, essentially, it's on a macroscopic or microscopic level. It's like coagulating the molecules, essentially. It creates a flock. So it sinks that and it creates a layer on the sediment to prevent nutrient release from the sediment. And then you typically see a lot of nutrient release in sediments too when lakes stratify in the summer. That's when the water changes and it creates layers to the lake. And then at the bottom layer, we call it the hypolimnion. That's when we see a decrease in oxygen, which is called hypoxia, or if there's no oxygen, anoxia, and that's what is able to help release nutrients from the sediment.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? If not, well, thank you.
Yep.
I think Ty was going
Was that-
We have Ty here.
Ty?
from-
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
from
you.
Oakland Harvesters. Thanks, Michael.
Hello, everybody. Ty Nutilla, owner and operator of Oakland Harvesters. We do work on Island and Upper and Lower Long Lakes here in town, and we've been doing it for years now. I would call myself what I would say would be a chemical minimalist at best. So as a contractor, what we want to do is get that biomass out of the lake safely and allow it to grow back. Like, you don't go out and, chemically nuke your lawn and then wait for it to grow back, so you only have to mow it once or twice a year. You want it looking nice and green because it's healthy for the lake. You're producing oxygen, you're keeping the bottom stable. There's filtration. It's good for, fish and plant life and wildlife in our lake. So, over the last couple of years, we have definitely noticed a change in Island Lake that's been concerning. We've worked with Ned a couple times on flexing our schedule and even just like foregoing an actual harvest because the conditions were so poor for growth last year. There was just nothing to cut. It was almost like a Chernobyl type situation there. So, and we work there, but we care so deeply about these lakes. We know, we've been here for years. I've got guys that worked for Eric Gleesner, who harvested these lakes for decades, before we took over. And we care deeply about these waterways, and we build our entire schedule around your lakes. You are our oldest and best clients, so people are always, want our services. We start with you guys, and then we build around it. You guys are our most important clients, as we move forward. And, there's always, in life, we're like the Amazon culture now, I call it. Like everybody, you can order something that's on your front desk or your door tomorrow, And, sometimes lakes take time to kind of recover. We've all seen various catastrophic type events over the years in various lakes. I've seen it. Sometimes Mother Nature just recovers on its own. I'm a big fan of testing and getting multiple tests from multiple labs if you have issues like you guys are experiencing right now, because sometimes there may be a conflict of interest there. No, I'm not saying anything with these guys, but I have seen it with other situations where, they kind of go to the lab that's kind of cozies up with the contractor and stuff like that. So I think a couple $1,000s on a test to compare is always a smart idea if you're looking at spending $250,000, which you might need to, I don't think so. A few years ago when I was out there, the lake was so beautiful. I called Ned. I'm like, can I go ice fish out there? Because I was seeing pike like this big swimming around and bass, and guys were catching these giant crappie. I was like, holy smokes, it was an unbelievable fishery, and we couldn't even hardly see a fish last year. And there's a lot of really neat wildlife in there, giant turtles, and I'm sure you guys know. So we do care deeply. We come out there every year. We go for 3 harvests. We try to get that last harvest so you don't get that biomass fall to the bottom at the end of every year and just keep stacking. You already get grass clippings, you get leaves, you get all this stuff naturally. So why would you want to keep putting extra layers of weeds on top of that, and then you create muck? Like when I get some new lakes calling me, or even some people, I talk to people on lakes that have been living there for 20 or 30 years, they're always like, oh, like 30 years ago it was 30 feet deep over there, now it's only like 10 feet deep. What happened? I'm like, that's 30 years of muck buildup, 30 years of weeds and leaves and grass clippings and stuff. And so what we try to do is, is at least slow that process down. It's an inevitable process, it's part of Mother Nature. Lakes fill in from the bottom up. Now, if you got a deep glacial lake, it's going to take forever, or probably never happen in our lifetimes or our great-great-grandkids' lifetimes. Some other lakes, like Upper Long Lake, is a very, very shallow lake. And if they're not harvesting, that lake's going to fill in very quickly, because the deepest spots are like 15, 20 feet, and that's only a couple spots in that whole lake. Overall, it's just a beautiful body of water, and it pains me to see it in this condition. So I hope we can all work together and figure out what it's going to take to get it back, because it is worrisome. Because the other lakes are doing fine. Upper Long and Lower Long are just beautiful, but they're a little bit bigger. I think they have a little bit more water flow through them. Upper Long uses absolutely no chemicals in the main lake at all, none whatsoever. And then a couple other things. I know, I don't know if anybody's watching, but, we go around the whole lake in a tactical, we approach a lake like tactically. So if we're not in front of your house today or tomorrow, we'll get there, okay? We work our way around the lake where, it's logical. We normally start on the far and then kind of work our way back to the area, and then we forward GPS maps over to Ned, so that if you wonder where we were and what we did, he has that data. And then, on our average harvest, we're pulling out 500-600 tons of weeds. Wow. And we've been up, I think maybe a year or two ago, we got over 1,000 tons of weeds in one harvest. It was like a bumper crop. So we're definitely not there right now. So that tells you that the sunlight's not getting through. There's definitely problems there that we need to work out. But we're always flexible. We're here to help. We want a long relationship with all the lakes that we work here in town. We want to get in and out of your lake very quickly and very professionally, and with no lingering, and just like a professional service. Like, most lake harvesting used to be kind of almost fly by night, but we've tried to make it very professional with brand new equipment and technology to really just get in and out of your lakes quickly. Because, the way things are going right now, we might get 3 months a year to use our lakes. So we want to give you all 3 months if we can.
And you harvest Island Lake 3 times a year? 3
We
times
do
a
it.
season?
We're scheduled for that and contracted for that, but if it's not, if there's no weeds there, we're not gonna come out and charge you for.
Right, but if-
And let me just say appreciation for that, because this last year, there was no reason to do a third harvest, even though contractually we could have been held to it probably. They did not do that, and you'll see it in our expenses, we did not have that third harvest.
I'm not greedy. I don't want to come out and take money for, no services. We certainly don't want to do that a lot because, like I say, I schedule all our lakes, and if I have a void there, I probably could have done another job. But the health of your lake and the relationship we have with you guys is more important than anything, more important than
But
money.
you pulled, what, 50 tons out normally?
Hundreds of tons.
Hundreds of
Probably
tons.
averages about 300 tons, yeah.
And how deep is the lake?
Oh, it's like 60, 80 feet out in the middle.
60 is
Yeah.
the deepest
Wow.
spot.
Yeah.
Okay, and it
But
doesn't have, there's not another lake it feeds into, it's kind of captured an island lake, right?
There's a couple small inlets,
Inlets?
not like,
Inlets.
like
Like
upper
little
and lower
streams?
kind of exchange.
More just like streams that
Yeah,
come through there,
yeah.
right?
I don't think there's a huge runoff issue.
Uh-huh.
The fertilizer type stuff's been cleaned up, by the, the government you guys don't have too many people spraying, really bad stuff in their lawns, I don't think anymore. But, yeah, there's not a lot of flow through that lake, not a ton, not like we see in other lakes, for sure.
And
there's
when you
not a
harvest, how
levee.
far down do you go?
6 feet it'll reach below the surface,
Okay.
maximum. So, if you're in 10 feet of water, once you get past like 18 or 20 feet, unless you're in like a crystal clear lake, you're not really getting any weed growth because the sun doesn't penetrate that deep for the weed growth. But primarily, you want the shallow areas. If you're out enjoying your lake, you don't want to be slogging through, weeds and things like that. If you're swimming, if you're boating, kayaking or whatnot.
Mhm.
And like I said, you don't want those hundreds of tons we pull out every year over 3 harvests, maybe 1,500 tons. If that's all stacked on the bottom of your lake every year, it doesn't take long to fill in the shallow areas.
And then when you remove all that, where the debris, the growth, what do you do with it?
We take it to a couple farms. We actually used to take it to the farm right over here, the Bloomfield.
Bowers?
Yeah, I would love to get that. If anybody knows those folks over there, they got a new manager, and we have been unable to utilize that. And they used to, they would take these weeds, and it's amazing compost, but it takes, like a tractor. You got to turn it. It's super good for
Fertilizer?
composting.
So
So
just composting? Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, we know contact. If you want to reach out to Martin or myself.
yeah, that would be great because they used to love it, and they actually kind of advertised it, and they did it for like 30 years, and then they got the new manager, and he hasn't. They've kind of changed the front. We used to drop it out front, and then they would move it out to the fields and spread it, and mix it with the manure and till it.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
okay, we'll check on that with you. Okay, if you have a question, please come up to the microphone, sir, and introduce yourself and.
My name is Warren Brandis. I've been living on Island Lake for about 30 years. I want to thank you for the work that you've been doing, but I'm concerned about the islands in Island Lake. When I first got there, they were at least 3 or 4 times the size they are now. And a few years ago, we did something to try to preserve the erosion. But I think more needs to be done, and I'd like to hear what you have to say about that.
Yeah, so our equipment, it reaches down 6 feet max, roughly 6 feet, depending on how much weight's in the boat and stuff. But our shallowest, like actual depth that we can cut is about 16, 18 inches. So we don't really get super close to those islands. I don't know if you're allowed to, one of the problems I see on those islands is they are literally covered in poop, bird poop.
Geese?
You've got geese, you got the fish-eating ducks out there, you got seagulls. I mean, it's like sometimes I'm out there and the whole island is white, from poop. So I think that's probably stopping plant growth. Where then when you get the waves and everything, you're getting, it's just basically just kind of melting away. I don't know if there's any way to preserve it. These gentlemen may have an idea. I don't know if you're allowed to plant things. You might have to go to Eagle or something. Are we allowed to put a plant on there that's going to hold it together? Maybe not create such a a great pooping area for all the birds.
Well-
we did that a few years back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We put pine trees there.
Yeah.
And we put some kind of a tree that had preservative in it around the island to
Yeah.
prevent erosion. But what else can we do? That's what I'm asking you.
Yeah, I'm honestly, I don't know legally what you can do. It's a private lake, obviously. These gentlemen may have more knowledge on that. But I would just look for some kind of, ground covering that's got a really dense root system that can hold up to the toxicity of, just trying to, that soil is probably, might need some, like an alkaline or something on it, just to even it out after all those years of, crap on it, to be honest with you. I don't know.
Yeah, it eats away at the soil.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, we had a terrible problem with the guano when we had a lot of birds there, but we
Yeah.
actually got rid of a lot of the birds.
Maybe
I mean,
just-
we had an air cannon, so they don't proliferate like they used to. And actually, we have a bunch of vegetation growing on it now. That's probably not the problem. It's simple, erosion, and I think that, it's falling apart from the edges. It's not necessarily, I mean, I think that you still have the roots of the plants on top. But, having to try and stabilize the actual border of the
Yeah.
lake is the
And it was high
difficulty.
water last year, so a foot would make a huge difference on the, what's above water over there.
Yeah. What?
Something else around the
Okay.
periphery of the islands, because after it rains, I can see the soil runoff. And that's what really.
So I guess well, I'm going to ask,
Yeah.
maybe you can all get together after the meeting and start to discuss
Absolutely.
this, okay? Yeah, that sounds like very important. You don't want to see that island washed away. That's a,
Then you're gonna have to rename the place.
There are 2 islands.
yeah. Was Island Lake?
Used to be Island Lake.
Right, that's okay. Well, thank you for.
One
Yes,
quick
sir.
question,
Yes,
Ty,
sure.
as far as
Yes.
where the area where you launch, is
Yes.
that working for you? Any issues
Fabulous,
there?
yeah.
Okay.
It's
I
great.
just want to make sure that you have
We love
the
it,
access
yeah.
you need.
And as usual, we notify Ned when we're gonna be in there, so people can get in and out. We really don't wanna pull out once we're in there. So if we can get we publish our dates when we're going in. Everybody get your boats in or out, because pulling that stuff out, is a chore.
Well, we've done a real good job of publishing dates in the past. I don't think we're going to be able to do that this as successfully this year.
No,
It's probably
yeah,
going to be
yeah,
more
for
more an ad hoc schedule.
I think by the time we get out there, all the boats are gonna be launched anyway, so.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else on the maintenance? Is that it? That's it? Okay, good.
That was a lot longer than usual.
Yeah, good. Okay. Consider approval of
Yes.
general liability insurance policy received from Hub International. Any comments on that?
Any background,
Tom,
Tom?
any background you want to share with us?
So last year, most of the township lake boards acquired directors and officers liability insurance, but we never obtained general liability insurance. So we spoke with Jay Sawmiller of Hub International, and he provided a quote for general liability in the amount of $1,613. And when the directors and officers liability insurance renews later in the year, the total cost for the insurance will be $3,350.
$3,350?
Mhm.
And that's in the budget?
It's in the budget.
So I move that we authorize the binding of GNL and
Directors and officers.
Director's Office's liability insurance as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any other comment on that? If not, take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay, it passes. Thank you. Thank you, Tom. Item number 8, review 2024 revenue, expenses, and fund balance report.
In your
Any-
packet is a fund balance report produced by the accounting office. A final report was just issued this morning, and I can distribute it to the Lake Board members. But you'll note the current reserve is $74,594.28, which is above the recommended 10 to 15% reserve for the total project cost. Something to keep in mind.
Okay, anything else you want to point out?
That's all.
Okay, we need to approve the budget?
That's just we do not need to approve this. This
Okay.
is informational.
Just
The budget
informational.
comes up
Okay.
later.
Item number 9, confirm expenditures since last review of April 5th, 2024 through April 3rd, 2025. Tom?
In the packet is a list of invoices that the township has paid since its last meeting, which was in April of last year. This is just a procedural matter for the board to review the invoices and formally approve them. But they've been reviewed once obtained, and they all are in order.
Okay,
I
thank
move we
you.
confirm the expenditures as presented.
Okay. Support?
Offered.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, item number 10, review and certification of delinquent 2024 assessments to the assessor. Tom, is there any comments on that?
So the treasurer's office in August of last year produced a list of delinquent accounts on the lake. There's 19 total parcels. Because the lake board meets so infrequently, this is handled administratively, but it still needs to be brought before the lake board for formal approval.
Mhm.
I move we confirm the certification of delinquent assessments for 2024.
Support?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, passes.
Can I ask a quick question? Did the
Mhm.
timing on this change at all? Because this is a lot more names than I've ever seen on that list.
Usually the roll is produced in October, but they prepared this list in August.
Oh, so
that's
that's why.
probably why.
Yeah.
Okay.
So probably some people up to date?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
surprised
So-
so many names and some of the names that were on there. So
Okay. Item number 11, consider adoption of the 2025 budget. Hearing of an assessment, so we have to hold a public hearing?
We'll discuss the budget first and then we'll do
Okay.
that. Yep.
Okay. Any, go ahead, Tom.
I would just bring your attention to the 2025 proposed budget. This is what we're looking to spend for this year. I'll note that for 26 and 27, the total amounts should be for 26, 81,000, and for 27, 80,500. But we compiled this by obtaining various contracts and used the amounts in them to anticipate what we plan to spend this year.
So Ned and Tom and the contractors all work together to develop these, and the one that's more set in stone is the one we're looking at this year for this year. The others are more estimates that are used to build the assessment, which will be discussed next. But so we're looking to approve the 2025 budget. Any questions?
Any comments? So if you have a comment, please come up to the microphone.
For 2025, it's going to be $81,500.
Okay.
But the assessment roll is going to be the same amount as was adopted in 21 with
Last year.
one small exception.
We'll get to that next. So I move we approve the 2025 budget as presented.
Support?
second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you, passes. All right, we'll move to the hearing of assessment, open up our public hearing. And if you have any comments, now's your time to come up to the microphone, my right, your left, make any comment. If not, we'll close the hearing and move to review the purpose of hearing of the assessment. Any comments from the board?
So the purpose of the hearing of assessment is to review to your objections to and confirm the special assessment roll for the purpose of improving Island Lake through weed harvesting and other treatments, such as nuisance aquatic plants. The assessment roll in your packet is for 2025 to 2028. The amounts are essentially the same for riparian and lake access parcels as was adopted in 2021, with the one exception of 1580 Long Lake, West Long Lake Road. That is being moved up from a partial assessment to a full assessment due to the fact that there's a canal that has a
Connected.
good amount of water and
And they have full access to the
Yes.
lake with the
Right.
dock.
Park
and
the
boat.
boats.
Yeah.
Yep, they do.
Okay.
So I don't have any questions about the assessment roll. Looks good to me. Ned? looks good to
Nope,
you?
I'm fine.
All good?
I-
Okay.
I move we approve the assessment roll as presented.
Support?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, good, thank you. Item number 13, presentation of Island Lake assessment roll.
Should I make sure I,
I think we already,
Was that
yeah, we
covered?
just did that.
we just
that was-
approved, we
Okay,
were
that was,
60.
that was,
You kind of skipped ahead, and I
Did
think
I?
we just did the vote to approve the,
I was done
The resolution?
Purpose of the hearing.
yeah, we've already, you opened and closed the public hearing already.
Oh, this one? I jumped ahead on
You
that
did.
one?
Yeah.
15.
Okay. So we're good? So which item do we go to now then?
That 15, I
Yes.
believe, is the
15.
resolution.
Consider approval of resolution confirming the Island Lake assessment roll.
So moved.
Support?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, passes. Any new business? Someone's up there.
Squirrel.
Squirrel. No new business? We'll move on to adjourn.
It is.
We'll move to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are
Aye.
adjourned. Thank you.